So, hello everybody. Today we're going to do an unboxing of the Kaiser Retro Box, das schwarze Auge fantastische Fantasy-Spiele Abenteuer-Basisspiel. This is a re-imaged version of the very first box set for TDE, The Dark Eye, das schwarze Auge from 1984. Back then it came out in two boxes. There was one that contained the actual game, and then there was another one which contained goodies, which basically the authors of the game didn't want to have included, but which the publishers of the game wanted to have included. So this is now basically an amalgamate of these two boxes, and we'll see what's inside. It's quite a hefty box. It retails at almost 65 euros. So this is the infamous mask that you were supposed to wear if you were running the game. So this was one of the gimmicks that the publishers wanted, but the developers of the game didn't. Then this is a little bit of, this is of course a new leaflet. It basically tells you what other stuff you can have. This is the book of rules. So basically this is the first book that details the rules of TDE first edition. So it's essentially, it tells you about the so-called Dokument der Stärke, which is essentially your character sheet. You have a couple of pictures in there. It tells you about the races that you can play, because races and classes were kind of not separated out. You could be a warrior, you could become a hero, you could be an elf or a female elf or a heroine or a warrioress. So obviously even back then they decided that they wanted to have one for each, which I for one condone. It tells you about the different attributes and how to roll the dice to work with them. It explains some of the terminology. Here you've got basically a pre-filled in character sheet. Here it tells you about how fighting works. You have, even back then you had the attack and the parry, so you basically have to roll twice. And then how fighting works, so you have detailed information about the different rounds of combat. It also tells you what happens if there is more than two people involved, and what you do if you have more than one adversary. It tells you about the murderous onslaught, which is an optional thing. It tells you about movement, about a round of play, how your hero can develop. It tells you about the different experience points and your levels and what happens when you level up. You could only get as far as level 21. This is about getting stuff for your hero, stuff you can buy, different weapons, etc., armor, pictures, how much you're going to have to pay to buy food, for example, or to buy clothes, and what kind of clothes there were, how much is a rope, how you use ranged weapons. And then here you have the different types of heroes that you can play. You can play dwarves, you can play magicians, adventurers, elves, and warriors, and what they do. So basically you rolled, I believe, your stats, and then you just had stats assigned to different attributes, and then you had to choose what you could be. So for example, if you wanted to be a warrior, you had to have courage and strength at least 12, and it tells you that they are allowed to use every single weapon there is and every single armor, but they cannot ever cast any spells. And interestingly enough, there were also no clerics in the old game. Then you have information about magic, you've got information about elves, and this is all very rudimentary because there is no lore there. It was really just, as I've explained in another video, Schmidt-Spiele said, okay, we're going to blow TSR out of the water, so we're going to produce our own. And it's pretty much the opposite in terms of some of the things, the way you roll the dice to D&D, because they had to be different. And here you've got the spell book. And explains what the spells do. It explains what you can do with a staff, because the staff also has staff magic. And then here is the different types of, well, there are 6 monsters in here. There is the orc, the goblin, the ogre, the kobold, the troll, and of course the dragon, and it gives you the stats as well. And that was the end. So this is now part of the newly released version. There's a commentary by Werner Fuchs, who's one of the 3 still surviving authors of the DSA realm and world, and he explains how this came about. Next up we have the Book of Adventures, which explains how to run a game. Then you have a little solo adventure, which I am going to play. I'm going to roll up I'm going to create a warrior or whatever, a hero online, on camera, I should say, and then I'm going to play the solo adventure. And it also contains Freeing Sylvana, which is an infamous adventure at this stage, but it was the first adventure that people who would have started out with this box would have played, because that was the first group adventure in there. Then we have this is from the second set, the action set of the Dungeon Master. It's the Book of Power, and this book is supposed to provide you with more information. So things that this was dedicated to people who were running the game. So it contained additional monsters, it contained traps, and it contained magical environment. So for example, magical items that you could find in a room. So magical doors, magical mirrors, magical statues. So of course, you know, here you have like a diagram of a trap that is basically a crossbow that will kill somebody who's trying to open the door, and it's actually shown. So basically, as you turn the handle, the crossbow is set off and the person standing outside is killed. So they actually took quite a lot of pain and you know, detail to explain how this would work and provide pictures for it, which I find amazing. And here, of course, you've got the monster manual, you've got the Cyclops and how they work in the game, what their particular fighting rules are, etc. Here you've got a Kraken and so on and so forth. Here you've got a Sphinx. And then you have heroes, monsters, and dark powers. Where you have even more monsters, like, you know, a giant spider. You have more traps, and you've got more magical utensils that you can use, and a couple of 20 riddles, which I'm going to check out. So it basically gave you more information on these animals that you could encounter. Here we've got Nedime, die Tochter des Kalifen. This is also a solo adventure that you could play, which I'm also going to play. I've never looked at it. And here we've got the Aventurische Boote. And this is, I think, one of the things that really sets this game apart from other games very early on. And that is the written history. The history that is written down as part of the world. So the world is described, adventures take place, and of course this is basically, some might say, spiraled out of control. But over the last 40 years, they have been writing forth the history in real time. So 1 year in real time basically corresponds to about 1 year in game time. And the Aventurische Bote is essentially the Aventurian Herald, which you can still get. It's sent out to people who have a subscription, or you can download it. You can get it as a PDF, and it's free. And if you order something from them, you actually get a free copy as well. And in it, basically stories about Aventuria are told. You know, it's as easy as somebody stole a bag of rice, down to really political information. And some of this is only detailed in these booklets, in these heralds, and you basically it's part of the lore, and it will tell you what happens in other parts of the continent. And some of this might even then lead to adventures, or some of this might actually refer back to an adventure, and you can then say, okay, well, we should play this adventure because it looks cool. And some of this is simply just part and parcel of the political and economic backdrop of Aventuria. And this was also it also contained, as we can see here, questions about rules and so on and so forth. So it was trying to engage the players and the game masters and build a community back then, and it worked. This is the Kaiser Retro Sonderheft. I've no idea what this is. We'll just have to take a look. We'll see. Okay, so that is... oh, I see. Yeah, these are NPCs that you can use, or PCs if you like. That's very good. So and this is Burg der Ungeheuer. Okay, it's a solitary game. I'll have to check this out. I don't know what this is, but it could be a choose your own adventure thing. Then you have the screen, which basically is a dark eye. And it contains information for you to run the game, like what kind of weapon damage there is, how much do you get for different types of armor, how much cover do they provide, how much is stuff, which is also quite interesting, because sometimes people just want to go shopping and you need to know how much the stuff is. Here we've got, oh, these are nice. So basically back then they also introduced, and I think they must be in here somewhere, yeah, they had little standees, which the authors hated. When the publishers came out with the idea of providing these little cutout things that you could basically put on a grid, they totally hated it. They were like, oh, this is so terrible, because you had to cut it out yourself. These are not, you know, like the ones that you have today, like these ones that you can push through, but here you've got like your enemies and stuff, and the authors hated it. What I find so funny about it is that Pathfinder first edition, the beginner's box, contains these. So today standees are actually something that you find in very, very many introductory boxes for different games, for Pathfinder, for D&D, etc. Here you've got... this is very nice, an empty pad where you can draw your own floor plans. Here you've got spare character sheets, and these ones you take. These are fight logs. So basically, you fight who's fighting whom, and so on and so forth. So this is all that's in there. There's supposed to be, oh, here we are. Yes, there are also standees for the cutouts, and then there is dice, and this die I'm going to add to my collection. These dice I'm going to add to my collection because they're custom made. So you've got like the mask of the dungeon master indicating the 6, and here indicating the 1. And the lower you roll on the d20, the better, and the higher you roll on the d6, the better. So this goes back in the box. And yeah, so I'm going to spend some time, and I'm going to build a hero following the rules for the first edition, and I'm going to play the solo adventure using this particular hero. So that is the Kaiser Retro Box for the Dark Eye Abenteuer-Basisspiel. So later on they also provided a extended version which added more stuff to it, but that was the first, or that's the amalgamation of the first 2 boxes that were released for TDE, the Dark Eye, in the early 80s. And I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.